Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to Mark Alford's Capital Recap. I'm Congressman Mark Alford here to give you the latest from our nation's capital in Washington, D.C., and the latest of what's going on in Missouri. Hey, we're coming to you today a little bit different circumstances. We're really busy in what we call the markup session for our appropriation bills. All right, let's jump right in. First off, before we get to that about the appropriations process, we'll really handle that after the break. But you know what's been going on in California. You have seen it on TV. You have seen the Democrats come out and say that it's a peaceful protest. One interview that I did on BBC, the anchor this week even told me that it was jovial people just out protesting. It is not jovial. It is destruction. It is anarchy. It is insurrection. And it is violence against police officers. But don't just take my word for it. Take the word of our leader, Steve Scalise, and Speaker Mike Johnson on what's been happening in California and in America this past week. Listen.
It's really an interesting time in America and in American politics. Republicans are governing well, and we are delivering on our promises, and we are bringing solutions, and we're working around the clock every day to make sure that that is delivered for the people as we promised them last year on the campaign trail. Meanwhile, Democrats are engaging in claws of destruction of cities and all sorts of chaos. The contrast is so clear, and everybody can see it. And we had all the Republicans gathered together for our weekly meeting here just in the last hour, and we showed them poll after poll after poll that confirms what we all know intuitively. The American people see who is doing the job, and they are losing their tolerance for the nonsense by the Democratic Party. And you can't make this stuff up. We talked a lot a bit this morning about what's happening in Los Angeles because it is such a great exhibit to show what is happening. A picture's worth 10,000 words, of course. You know, while the rioters have been burning police cars and looting storefronts and physically assaulting law enforcement officers, it's important to remember how we got to this point, to this level of chaos, because this didn't happen overnight. 4 quick points to make us all remember. You know, we're in a busy news cycle and people sometimes forget the facts, but the Biden administration welcomed maybe as many as 20 million illegal aliens across that border and into our country in a 4-year period. Sanctuary states like California rolled out the welcome mat. They embraced it. They offered aliens protection from federal law enforcement. Think of it. They're on the wrong side of the law. And they provided them with health care and housing and taxpayer-funded benefits. It's truly almost unbelievable, incredible what these Democrat leaders of these cities and states have done. President Trump delivered on an ironclad mandate from the American people. And just as we said throughout the entire Biden administration disaster, the law always allowed the president to stop it, and President Trump did it with bold visionary leadership. He stopped the invasion of our country, and he engaged in the largest mass deportation effort in U.S. history. We're in the midst of that right now. Rioters, acting on the words of politicians like AOC and Hakeem Jeffries, are trying to stop this effort by burning storefronts and endangering the lives of patriotic law enforcement officers. The contrast could not be any more clear. Time and time again, innocent, hardworking Americans have been harmed by the failed leadership of Democrat governors like Gavin Newsom. President Trump was absolutely right to send in the National Guard and to clean up for the governor's failures. You know, Gavin Newsom's been in this effort for the last several months to try to reinvent himself, to rebrand himself, okay? It's pretty difficult to do when your state is a safe haven to violent, criminal, illegal aliens, and you're the one at the helm. You can't hide this stuff. The President of the United States has a responsibility to maintain law and order, particularly when the lives and livelihoods of federal law enforcement officers are threatened. What we're doing there with the federal forces is we are protecting federal buildings and property and personnel, and the President is showing strong leadership in doing so. Because, you know, it's those men and women, the federal law enforcement officers, who deserve our support right now. And the One Big Beautiful Bill, by the way, as Leader Scalise noted, delivers much-needed reinforcements. In this bill, we have funding to hire a minimum of 10,000 new ICE agents. We're going to provide a $10,000 bonus to Border Patrol and ICE agents on the front lines. We're going to include $45 billion to expand ICE detention capacity and $14.4 billion for air and ground transport to carry out at least 1 million deportations every single year. We'll have to do that for quite some time because they let so many people in.
We need to pass the One Big Beautiful Bill, and why we need to get it to President Trump's desk as soon as possible. One of the many great provisions in this bill that we came together to pass through the House are provisions that allow our ICE agents and our Border Patrol agents to get more resources, to get more support, hiring more Border Patrol agents and more ICE agents. Frankly, it's one of the reasons that every single Democrat voted no on the bill, because they want open borders. They want the chaos and the mayhem that comes with sanctuary cities and sanctuary states that we've been standing up against. They had the opportunity to join us, and they deliberately chose to vote no because they want higher taxes, they want open borders, they want to close off our energy resources, all the things that were in that bill. And so we're going to continue moving forward. The Senate is doing their work now, and I'm confident the Senate is going to move through quickly to get that bill through the Senate, ultimately back to the House for any minor changes, and then to the president's desk so that we can hire those additional Border Patrol agents, hire those additional ICE agents to keep Americans safe. And by the way, if you're a citizen of the state of California, while your governor is failing you miserably, at least we have a president in Donald Trump who is willing to say that he will step up and try to protect those same people, law-abiding people who are sick and tired of the lawlessness. They are disgusted by a foreign flag being waved in an American city and their governor defending the people that are actually burning down the city, trying to call it a peaceful protest. Don't insult the intelligence of the American people. They see what's happening. They know why it's happening. The far left Democrat Party wants open borders. There was an election run on this. The American people said enough is enough. We want secure borders.
This week, we also voted on several key pieces of legislation that codify the Trump agenda, holding D.C. accountable and safeguarding our election integrity. We voted on one bill that was sponsored by Congressman Higgins, the D.C. Federal Immigration Compliance Act. Now, this bill represents our unified push to back President Trump's promised immigration crackdown and dismantling of the bureaucratic rot that has really enabled the border crisis pretty much under the Biden administration. This legislation is going to force D.C. to cooperate with ICE. Even though they don't want to, they're going to. It reverses the sanctuary policies that turned our great capital into a magnet for illegal immigration under President Biden. We also passed the Protecting Our Nation's Capital Emergency Act. Now, this reverses D.C.'s disastrous 2022 policing reforms that gutted officer protections and fueled staffing collapses. You know, Biden's veto of H.J. Res 42 let anti-police radicals sabotage police recruitment and force Congress now to clean up the mess, and that's what we're going to do. We know that D.C.'s crime crisis was manufactured by progressive politicians who prioritized woke posturing over public safety. It is time to change that, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We also passed the Halt Fentanyl Act. This permanently designates fentanyl into a Schedule I drug of the Controlled Substance Act, which removes the incentives for the creation of new dangerous substances and the components that make up fentanyl. Because right now they're not Schedule I and there's not a lot of teeth that law enforcement can sink in. Every single person who's died because of fentanyl is more than just a statistic. You've heard the stories in our district there in Missouri, in the Kansas City area. Think about this. About 300 people a day in America die from fentanyl poisoning. And they're not simply overdoses. These are poisonings. The Chinese Communist government sending the equipment over to Mexico and the ingredients to Mexico. Mexico makes the fentanyl. It comes through what was our porous border. It's also coming in through Canada. That's got to stop, all right? It is killing our fellow citizens. The Halt Fentanyl Act is going to help stop the deadly fentanyl from flooding across our borders. It's going to crack down on the traffickers. When we come back, we'll get more into an appropriations process, and we'll talk about the rescission package that we passed this week. Rescission, it's a kind of a big word. We'll explain it in great detail when we come back. You're listening to Mark Alford's Capital Recap. Stay with us. Welcome back to Mark Alford's Capital Recap. Thanks for being with us today. You've heard from our leadership team on what's going on in Washington and the outrageous, violent riots in California this week. We also talked about the bills that we're passing to protect election integrity and codify President Trump's plans, which we as Americans all voted for him to put into action, right? Well, now, let's dive into rescission. What is rescission? Well, the President of the United States has to send over a rescission package, and basically it's unspent money from the previous budgets and appropriation bills that we claw back, all right? We take back that's not being used, unobligated funds. This first package was for about $9.4 billion. It was wasteful spending identified by President Trump and DOJ. Well, some examples of how we're getting our government back on track is saving from the public broadcast system. Corporation for Public Broadcasting, it aired the great children's programs. You know, when I was a kid growing up, it was Sesame Street. They were teaching the ABCs. They weren't teaching DEI and CRT, but that has changed. There were even some of these programs featuring drag queens, and they produced a movie celebrating sex change surgeries for children. Can you believe that? Well, one of the cuts we're making is to NPR, which ran a feature around queer animals. And really, they were upset that animals require pronouns and thought we should be concerned about animals having pronouns. They've kind of gone off the deep end with their liberal ideology, and taxpayer money should not be going to fund these programs, in my opinion. Back in the 1960s, when there weren't a lot of choices out there for available information and education, that was one thing. But now you can pick up a phone and get just about anything you want on the phone. If you've got a Roku TV at home, you turn that thing on, you've got 2,000 channels. There is no lack of information and education out there. If someone in a family that wants that information, they can get it without taxpayers footing the bill. Some of the biggest cuts are also going to be made to the USAID program. $135 million in contributions to the World Health Organization, $6 million for supporting media organizations and civic life of Palestinians. We're clawing back $3 million for sexual reproductive health in Venezuela. Folks, there's just some of the insane examples of waste, fraud, and abuse through USAID. Hey, there are some good programs in USAID. I'm on the appropriations subcommittee that oversees this program. It's now been shifted over to the State Department. And yes, we have soft power in some of these programs. But as I told the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, going forward, what we need to be doing is making sure that these are national security investment projects. If it doesn't have to do with national security, we should not be spending your money on these programs. And that's exactly what we're going to do moving forward. In the upcoming appropriations package, that's what we're going to be doing as well, making sure everything runs through that funnel. The cuts being made to USAID, we're cutting about 6,000 programs. We're keeping about 900 of them. We're really proud to support the rescission package to codify the DOJ cuts and take another small step towards getting America's fiscal house in order before this ship sinks because of our national debt. Want to hear some of the clips from our full committee markups. Again, a markup is where we vote on the bill, basically, with the amendments. From our 12 appropriations subcommittees, we're moving pretty aggressively to make sure we get this done. We want to get all 12 of these out of committee before we come home for our in-district work period in August. And then we need to get them passed on the House floor. The Senate's working on their versions. Tuesday, we worked from 3 in the afternoon till 3 in the morning to pass the Military Construction Veterans Affairs funding bill. Now listen, part of this is having to do with how fentanyl-related drugs are flowing over our borders and killing too many young people. The Department of Defense plays a critical role in securing our border, and that's why we must and we will be funding this appropriately. Listen.
The American people expect their borders to be secure. The challenges of our southern border, including the ongoing flow of illegal drugs, human trafficking, and other illicit activities, are growing threats to to our security and must be addressed. The cartels exploiting our border and increasingly sophisticated and dangerous. The Department of Defense has a critical role in this fight. Mr. Secretary, I applaud your efforts in focusing resources to ensure the border is secured. I look forward to more discussion about what resources are necessary to keep the momentum going without compromising our ability to meet threats abroad.
We also held our closed defense markup, fighting and championing for our American Armed Services was the name of it. And on Thursday, we held our Homeland Security markup. Look, our appropriations chair, Tom Cole, says our goal is securing the homeland and keeping Americans safe, and that's what we're going to do. Every measure in this bill stands firm against the threats that we face on the world stage. This bill will defend, it will deter, and it will deport. House Republicans, we really commend the brave men and women who stand on the front lines each day, not only in word, but by investing in them and empowering them to do their jobs. And that's what we're doing with these appropriations bills. From our borders and ports to aviation and cyber, we're delivering the personnel, the training, and the technology to reinforce every layer of protection. So as you can see, we've been pretty hard at work fighting for your interest and the protection of our great nation. I love being on this appropriations committee because it really gives me a chance to be at the front row for you, to delve deeply into our spending. We are starting to get that under control in Congress as we move forward. Every bill that we put forward are going to see cuts to try to bend the curve of our national debt, except for defense. And we're finally getting that number up to where we can compete and we can have peace through strength, as Ronald Reagan once said. As you know, each week we like to remind you about the services our office provides to you, our constituents, our clients, as I like to call it. If you ever need help with the federal government, our team is ready to help you. Since January of 2023, our team has returned a total of, drum roll please, we have returned to you, the taxpayers, $5,137,041.33. Over $5 million back to you. That is working for you. One of our constituents got with our office back in June of last year about the status of his employment retention tax credits, ERCs. He put in his application on behalf of the business. Now, so during COVID, if you retained employees to keep working, the federal government helped you out with these tax credits. People applied for those, and the federal government that promised the money was not living up to their promise and getting those tax credits to the employers. We are fighting for that. Mr. JW finally got his ERC payments from June 24 through June 25. It totaled over $1 million that the federal government was holding on to. We got them to release that, and he's got his money. Hey, folks, this is just one of the countless stories that we have of working for you in Missouri's 4th Congressional District. So whether it's a VA, Social Security, or maybe you need a passport in a hurry, we can help. All that information, how to contact our offices for help, you can find it on our website, offer.house.gov. Again, that's offer.house.gov. Hey, one other thing. I know there's been a lot of clamoring, a lot of complaining because we're not doing town halls. Well, that's false. We are doing town halls. We're holding 12 town hall meetings this August. We do them every August. We don't necessarily do them throughout the year. We have tele-town halls. We have Mondays with Mark, and we have coffees where we can talk with each other in a sane manner and hear your concerns one-on-one. But we are having our 100th public appearance coming up this Monday. It's going to be in Belton. You have to register for it. It's through KCUR. They're putting this together. They contacted us. They wanted us to do this, and we're doing it because I think it's important to have these discussions in a sane, rational manner where you can ask questions and we can give the answers. Not all the answers you're going to like, folks, but I'm excited that we're having our 100th public appearance since we took office. Hey, thanks for listening to our Capitol Recap. I thank you every day for allowing me to be your voice and your vote in Washington. It's an honor to be here in D.C. this week, voting for you, working for you, and staying up, pulling all-nighters to get these appropriation bills done. As we close out this week's Capital Recap, I want to share our Sunday scripture. It is Romans 5, 1 and 2. Paul said, "Therefore, since we have been justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have gained access by faith to this grace in which we stand, and we boast in hope of the glory of God." Great scripture. I love Romans. If you haven't read Romans, read it. Romans 12 is my favorite chapter in the Bible, leading a transformed life. Folks, we'll never stop working for you. I appreciate you. Hey, until next week, remember, I believe in America. I believe in you. And most importantly, I believe that our greatest days are still ahead. Good day, and God bless.